As Amaka walked the long road home, a hush fell over the village. Every eye turned to her. Every whisper cut through the air like a blade. The women watched her, judgment sharp in their glances, and some muttered openly. Ejiro, perched by the roadside with a smirk, spat. Imagine! A virgin thinking she keep Chinedu for herself. Her laughter, dripping with mockery, echoed in the early morning stillness. They say her scream woke the whole village. Her poor father's been worried sick, searching for her like she'd been stolen by spirits. The women beside her chuckled, while Ifanye, unable to contain himself, murmured with a grin. But look, Amaka does seem different, more beautiful even. Oh, shut it, Ejiro snapped, jealousy flashing in her eyes. What do you know about beauty? Amaka's always been soft. She couldn't handle a real man if she tried. Look at me. She tossed her hair, giving a proud twirl to flaunt her curves. I could handle any man in this village. There's enough space down there for heavily endowed men. Ifanye choked back laughter. Well, we know you've had plenty of practice, he said slyly, ducking just as Ejiro hurled a sandal at him in mock outrage. The women dissolved into laughter, but beneath the merriment, an uneasy air lingered. Amaka, however, ignored them. Her heart pounded with every step toward her father's hut, shame burning her cheeks. How would he react? Would Mazi Okoro, her gentle but proud father, turn his back on her? As she reached the door, she hesitated, but before she could draw another breath, her father stepped out and saw her. Amaka, he cried, running to her. His eyes shone with relief as he embraced her. You're safe. Thank the spirits. Are you hurt? No, Papa, Amaka replied, a faint smile tugging at her lips. I feel better than ever, really. Mazi Okoro's face softened. Then why did you run away with him, child? And what happened that night? I thought an evil spirit had taken you. Amaka shook her head quickly. No, Papa. Chinedu would never hurt me. What happened? It wasn't his fault, and it wasn't an evil spirit that took us, Imuna, the village magician. Her father's eyes widened. Munachi? He echoed, his voice filled with disbelief. You mean Muna can make people vanish? And yet made the whole village believe he's just a petty magician with few party tricks. Yes, but you mustn't tell anyone. He doesn't want the village to know. Mazi Okoro nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. Very well, my child. I'll keep his secret. Meanwhile, in Muna's secluded treehouse, Chinedu wrestled with thoughts of the previous night. Muna had been kind, attentive, and skilled in ways Chinedu hadn't fully understood before. And the magician had shared secrets, powers that could transform the impossible into reality. Chinedu's curiosity grew day by day, and whenever Muna left, he would sneak into his study, poring over books filled with strange diagrams, vessels that floated on water, crafts that soared through the air, ideas that seemed straight from the dreams of gods. One morning, Muna stayed back, moving a wooden handle up and down something small and intricate with a compressing chamber. What is that? Chinedu asked, intrigued. It's an orange extractor, Muna replied, squeezing juice into a wooden cup and handing it to him. Chinedu accepted the drink, taking a slow sip as Muna watched him with a glint in his eye. Muna's gaze lingered longer than usual, had soft yet piercing, and Chinedu felt his cheeks warm under the magician's intensity. You see, ever since Muna showed interest in Chinedu have been acting strange. Chinedu would avoid Muna's gaze. He would speak less to him and would move the opposite direction whenever he sees Muna. Muna, seeing his uneasiness around him, made him keep a safe distance from him. I'm always going to be here whenever he's ready, no pressure, so he thought, allowing things to flow naturally. Chinedu's heart has been heavy with lots of unanswered questions. The strange diagrams in Muna's study, and the most pressing question in his heart was trying to understand what Muna meant by they could be together. After a moment, Chinedu mustered the courage to speak. Muna, I want to ask you some questions. I don't know how to put it in the right words without sounding off. Chinedu said nervously. Muna, upon seeing that he was uneasy, again leaned closer. Chinedu, it's okay to feel this way. I know you've been going through my stuff, and I also know you've been avoiding me, but since you finally feel comfortable coming to ask, I would gladly answer all your questions. So go ahead, ask me anything. Chinedu cleared his throat, trying to ask the most pressing question in his mind. But each time he opens his mouth, words didn't come out. He wanted to ask what he really meant, that two men could be together. and what he meant by saying he's not a typical man. You see, Muna is a very intelligent person. Apart being a magician, he could read people's mind. But Muna didn't try to put Chinedu out of his mystery by letting him know what he was thinking. He wanted to know if Chinedu really liked him that much to open up to him. If you're not ready to ask the first question, you can move to the next one. Muna grinned as he sipped some orange juice. Chinedu replied hastily, trying to shake off his feelings. Okay, my question is, while I was going through your books, I saw some diagram of a vessel on sea that could also fly. Do you mean that in the nearest future this could be possible? Muna's eyes dimmed as he blushed hard, knowing that wasn't Chinedu's first question. Yes, my love, it's possible. Do you remember the other day at your blacksmith shop? He paused, trying to get a response. Chinedu nodded. Yes, I remember. I said we're going to make magic happen with your skill as a blacksmith and with my magic. I remember you said magic has nothing to do with your work. Yes, I remember. Chinedu replied curiously, but that's not true, and soon I'm going to prove it. You never bothered to know where I came from. It wasn't a coincidence that I chose to come to this village. I have always been following you, trying to know your work. I have a dream of the future, and all the diagrams you saw are sketches from my dream. I would say it's a vision of the future, a future of technology yet to be explored. What do you mean by you've been following me for how long? If I may ask, Chinedu asked, his face etched with concern. Long enough, Muna replied with a cute grin. Chinedu felt a little embarrassed, thought running through his mind. Does this mean that he knows all about his awful experiences with women? Days went by, and Chinedu awaits Amaka's feedback on whether it's safe for him to return to the village. Meanwhile, Muna knew it was safe for him to leave his treehouse but never told him. Chinedu's presence intrigues him. The way he acts nervously around him put his mind on an endless adventure of longing, hoping one day he would open up to him. After all, he is the man. You see, Chinedu didn't know that Muna isn't a biological man, but because most of his features is manly, and no one can ever or had ever suspected that Muna is a woman. Muna was different from everyone around, like he was from another dimension. One morning, Muna was taking his bath, and like always, Chinedu would always knock to make sure no one was inside before getting in. Chinedu knocked on the bathroom door. Come in, Muna said, his voice certain. Chinedu hesitated. But you're in there, I can wait when you're done, Chinedu replied. Muna wanted to reveal to Chinedu once and for all that he can be comfortable around him. No thanks, Chinedu replied as he sat in the sitting room waiting for Muna to come out. Chinedu sat down, mesmerized by the thought of actually being with Muna. Chinedu had feelings for Muna, but was afraid of what would happen if he saw him bare. I can't do this, Chinedu's mind battling with his feelings. What will the villagers say? I already have a horrible experiences with women. Being with a man will be the height of it. Muna came out of the bathroom and his eyes darted towards where Chinedu was seated, but Chinedu looked away. Muna went to where Chinedu was seated and leaned in towards him and kissed him. Chinedu couldn't contain his emotions, so he kissed Muna passionately for 5 minutes, and soon things began to escalate. You see, this two have been celibate for long because of their peculiar personalities, and now finding someone they shared a deep emotion with made it impossible for them to stop. Hands lingering, holding, touching, embracing, their eyes dimmed with passion as the early morning breeze blew in from the beach. The tension between them felt almost tangible, like the crackle of lightning before a storm. And for a heartbeat, Chinedu felt his defenses crumble. As the romance went on, there came a sudden knock at the door. Chinedu? It's me, Amaka, a familiar voice called from outside. Chinedu sprang up, his heart pounding. He cast an apologetic look toward Muna, who stepped back, disappointment softening his features. Amaka? Chinedu stammered as he opened the door. She threw her arms around him, her eyes bright with relief. Why didn't you come back? Amaka asked, stepping back to study his face. Muna didn't told you Papa wasn't angry? You didn't have to hide here. Chinedu felt the weight of her gaze and struggled to compose himself, his heart still fluttering from the interrupted moment with Muna. What could he possibly say? Chinedu felt a rush of conflicting emotions as he stood before Amaka. Come, let's go home, she urged, hope shining in her eyes. With a nod, Chinedu allowed Amaka to lead the way, but inside, his heart was a tempest. He walked beside her, yet his thoughts wandered to Munachi, the magician whose presence tugged at his soul. Memories of their kisses and playful banter filled his mind, the warmth of Munachi's smile, the comfort in their shared silence. He felt a twinge of guilt at the thought of being with Amaka while secretly yearning for another. Once they arrived at the village, the air hummed with gossip again. Whispers followed them like shadows. Chinedu kept his gaze on the path ahead, trying to shake off the feeling of eyes on him. He engaged in polite conversation with villagers who expressed their relief at seeing him return, but each word felt like a distraction from the truth he couldn't voice. Amaka stayed close, her laughter sparkled like sun on water, but Chinedu's thoughts drifted to Munachi's words about dreams and futures. Nights spent in the treehouse replayed vividly, filling his heart with a bittersweet ache. He knew that what he felt for Munachi was different, deeper somehow, more profound than what he shared with Amaka. His heart battled with the thought of what it meant to love someone who, by all appearances, was a mystery wrapped in charm. Meanwhile, in the secluded comfort of his treehouse, Muna wrestled with his own feelings. He admired Chinedu from afar, hoping for a sign that the love they shared could blossom without sacrificing Amaka's happiness. Muna was also aware of the tangled emotions that swirled among them. He had no intention of hurting Amaka, who was so dear to Chinedu. Should I reveal myself? Munachi pondered while gazing at the horizon. Would it ease the yearning between us? Yet doubts held him back. He knew that revealing his true self might shatter both relationships. Days turned into weeks as Chinedu attempted to settle into village life again, always plagued by the ache of who he couldn't be with. Each evening, beneath the blanket of stars, he envisioned Munachi's smile, the softness of his laughter. Then one fateful evening, Chinedu met Munachi by the beach, where they had shared secrets and dreams. The moonlight cast silver hues around them, illuminating the tension that loomed in the air. Chinedu, Muna began, but the words caught in his throat as both men struggled to maintain a safe distance. I shouldn't be here, Munachi, Chinedu replied, guilt tugging at him. I'm with Amaka. I can't betray her trust. I would never wish to come between you two, Muna said, his heart aching. Silence enveloped them as the weight of their emotions settled in. They both knew the depths of their bond, yet the barrier of guilt pushed them apart. Chinedu felt torn between what's right and his desire to be with Muna, while Muna wrestled with the knowledge that sometimes love meant letting go. Perhaps it's best if we keep our distance for now, Chinedu suggested, his voice laced with sorrow. Munachi nodded slowly, managing a small smile, though sadness lingered in his eyes. If it's what you truly wish, I'll respect your choice. Just know that I'll always be here, hoping for your happiness, whatever form it may take. As they parted ways that night, Chinedu's heart felt heavier than ever. Determined to bridge the growing chasm between his feelings for Chinedu and respect for Amaka, Munachi decided to embark on a grand project he had spent his life designing. The creation of a vessel, an innovation born from his visions of the future. The vessel would symbolize not just his ingenuity, but also the possibility of forging connections that transcended the ordinary. If he could craft a marvel that combined their skills and passions, he hoped it would draw Chinedu closer to him, allowing their hearts to mingle without constraints. With his blueprints ready, Munachi gathered the villagers, embodying a mixture of excitement and nervousness. We are going to build a ship that sails both the sea and the sky, he proclaimed, sharing his passion and vision. Some villagers exchanged skeptical glances, while others nodded in encouragement, intrigued by the idea. Chinedu, still grappling with his own emotions, couldn't resist the allure of the challenge. He was a blacksmith by trade, and the thought of collaborating with Munachi reignited a spark within him. Together, they could create something extraordinary. He stepped forward, clearing his throat. Count me in, Munachi. I'll help construct the ship. I have seen his sketches, and I strongly believe it can be possible. Chinedu trying to boost everyone's confidence to support him. The beach became a hive of activity as villagers rallied to support the project. Chinedu oversaw the construction, melding iron and wood with deft hands. The rhythmic clang of metal against metal became a backdrop to the waves lapping against the shore. With every strike, Chinedu built more than just a ship. He crafted memories. He was so happy he could get to see Muna every day. Amaka, always supportive yet oblivious to the deeper undercurrents, took it upon herself to supply the hard-working men with food and encouragement. Each day, she prepared hearty meals filled with love, her laughter ringing through the air as she checked in on Chinedu and Muna. "Are you all keeping up your strength?" she teased, handing out steaming bowls of yam porridge and fresh fish. As she served them under the shade of palm trees, Amaka's eyes would often drift to Chinedu, trying to decipher the whirl of emotions swirling within him. She noticed how his gaze would sometimes wander to the horizon, as if seeking something beyond their little world. "What are you thinking about, Chinedu?" she would ask, concern lacing her voice. "I'm just focused on the ship," he would reply with a smile, though the truth lingered unspoken in the depth of his heart. Muna thrived on Chinedu's presence, their dynamic transforming into a beautiful collaboration. The blueprints depicted flowing lines and intricate designs that promised both speed and grace. While Chinedu shaped the vessel's skeleton, Muna infused his magic into every inch, learning, guiding, and creating something that echoed their dreams of exploration and connection. Late into the evenings, by the firelight, Muna would share stories of the world beyond their village, spinning tales of distant lands and adventures yet to come. Chinedu would listen, captivated, envisioning a life beyond this shores. One night, as they worked late, the stars overhead blurred into a shimmering tapestry. Chinedu peered at the nearly complete vessel, a work of art forged from their combined efforts. "This is going to be legendary," he said, feeling emboldened by the energy around them. "Yes, and it will be our legacy," Muna added, leaning closer, a beautiful vulnerability shimmering in his gaze. "Together, we can change the course of the world's history." That moment felt charged, both thrilling and terrifying. Chinedu's heart raced, caught in the current of what lay between them. Yet in the back of his mind, thoughts of Amaka, her unwavering support, and the sacrifices she made for him snaked their way back. Amaka continued to highlight the project's importance, her laughter ringing out as she played the role of nurturing observer, while her heart remained loyal to Chinedu. Glancing at him, she would notice how he'd light up when Muna spoke, and it left her feeling a mixture of pride and confusion. Even while she provided meals and care, she detected that strange, unshakable bond between the two men. The night the ship was nearly completed turned into a celebration. The villagers gathered by the beach, joyous music filling the air as they prepared to launch this vessel, a testament to innovation and collaboration, a representation of how dreams made tangible could transform a village. As the days passed and the ship stood complete, the village buzzed with excitement. Amaka, always attentive, began to sense a shift. "Chinedu, I've noticed something," she said one evening as they prepared food for the villagers. "Why doesn't Munachi have a woman by his side? He's wealthy and good-looking, yet he seems content to be alone." Chinedu felt a flush of emotions at her words, a mixture of guilt and sorrow weaving through him. How could he explain the unbreakable bond he felt with Muna without shattering the heart of the woman who cared for him so deeply? "He's focused on his work, Amaka," he replied, avoiding her searching gaze. "Perhaps he just hasn't found the right person yet." When the day of the ship's launch arrived, excitement filled the air. Villagers gathered along the beach, laughter rising like the waves, their anticipation palpable. Chinedu stood beside Muna at the edge of the sand, both men staring at the gleaming vessel. Once the ceremony was underway, the king made his presence known, offering words of encouragement and praise. The villagers praised Muna's vision and the strength of Chinedu. But as they celebrated, an unacknowledged tension simmered beneath the surface. As the cheerful sounds faded into the background, it was in that intimate moment near the ship's edge that Muna stepped closer to Chinedu, heart racing with emotion. "Can I tell you something?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "What is it?" Chinedu replied, hoping to mask his own vulnerability. Muna hesitated, his gaze flickering to the ground and then back to Chinedu's eyes, filled with longing. I wish to be with you, not just as friends. I can't keep pretending anymore." He leaned in, yearning for the closeness he'd imagined in countless moments, but Chinedu instinctively recoiled, fear gripping him tightly. "I can't, Muna," Chinedu exclaimed, panic rising. "What would the villagers think? Amaka, she's given so much for our friendship. His heart ached with the weight of unquenched desire and the tangible bond he shared with Muna. Feeling rejected, yet understanding the gravity of their situation, Muna stepped back, hurt and frustration swirling in his chest. An idea began to form, a desperate escape from a love he couldn't have. Then maybe we should leave the village. Perhaps there's a place where people will accept our connection. And I promise it's not what you think. You really need to know me first before you conclude. I can't Munachi. I spent most of my life trying to fit into a place without being judged. Amaka is the only woman that has stood by me after knowing my secret. I don't want to hurt her. I love you so much, but no one would understand why two men would want to be together. It's forbidden. Muna tries to speak, but Chinedu's voice cuts in. No, I can't. Maybe in our next life we can be together. Unknown to Chinedu, Muna planned on leaving when the ship is being launched. Okay, Chinedu, maybe in our next life. The villagers, unaware of the emotional storm brewing, prepared to witness the ship's launch. As the vessel floated gracefully into the water, Muna stood at the helm, tears brimming in his eyes. The farewell was met with joyous cries, but the atmosphere shrouded Chinedu in an unbearable gloom. Chinedu, Muna called, stepping down from the ship but failing to reach Chinedu's side. I need you to know, I am leaving. Chinedu's heart sank as he struggled against the swell of emotion. But why? How sure are you that this vessel can sail? What if it's not safe? He deflected, desperate to buy time. But deep down he knew it was a flimsy excuse, a cover for the pain he could no longer hide. Amaka, watching the interaction with a growing sense of dread to ache in her heart as she recognized the sorrow etched on both men's faces. Something deep and unshakable tugged at her understanding of love. She had seen the signs, the lingering gazes, the electrifying connection between them. But could two men ever be together? She pushed those thoughts down, unable to confront the heartache they would surely bring. But now, standing apart, she felt the weight of their unspoken love echo through the air, blending with the joyous sounds of farewell. Tears began to gather in her eyes, understanding dawning upon her. This was more than friendship. This was heartbreak. Muna stood at the helm, ready to embark on his journey away from the one person he had ever loved. As the ship started to float above the shore, realization struck Chinedu with brutal clarity. He might never see Muna again. In that moment, the weight of his unexpressed feelings crashed over him. Chinedu crumbled to his knees on the beach, emotions spilling over as tears streamed down his face. Amaka fell to her knees beside him, feeling the depths of his pain, her own heart breaking as she watched the distance between the two men stretch wider. The villagers, who had cheered moments before, now stood frozen, uncertain and confused, as they sensed the gravity of what transpired. The love woven quietly between three close friends, now laid bare in the most tragic of revelations. Munachi, noticing Chinedu's quiet despair, felt the walls he had built around his heart start to crumble. His resolve faltered as he stood at the edge of the ship, desperately scanning for a way to turn back. But this was his first time launching such vessel and couldn't figure a way to land it on takeoff. Chinedu, he cried, a mixture of sorrow and exhilaration bursting forth, tears flowing freely down his face. It all felt painfully futile, but he couldn't just leave without knowing. Yet, as the ship drifted further from the shore, the villagers' cheers faded, blending with the sound of Chinedu's broken sobs.